Getting rid of the addiction to a person in a relationship is not easy, especially when emotions are deeply attached and habits of dependence have formed over time. What often feels like love can slowly turn into emotional addiction, where your happiness, peace, and thoughts become heavily centered around one person. This topic is about understanding that attachment in a healthy relationship is normal, but losing your own identity in it is not. When you start depending on someone for constant attention, reassurance, or emotional stability, it can create anxiety, overthinking, and emotional imbalance. In this guide, we will explore how emotional addiction develops, why it becomes so strong, and most importantly, how you can slowly detach yourself in a healthy way. The goal is not to stop caring or to become cold. It is to regain control over your emotions, rebuild your self-worth, and create a balanced mindset where love exists without dependence. Recognizing emotional dependence is the most important first step in getting rid of addiction to a person in a relationship. Many people stay stuck in emotional attachment because they do not even realize how much control the other person has over their thoughts and feelings. They may believe it is love, but in reality, it often becomes a habit of needing someone for emotional stability. Emotional dependence happens when your mood, peace, and happiness start relying heavily on one person's attention, replies, or behavior. For example, if you feel extremely happy when they text you but feel anxious, empty, or overthinking when they don't respond, it shows a strong emotional dependency. This imbalance slowly creates stress and makes you lose control over your own emotions. The purpose of recognition is not to judge yourself, but to become aware of your patterns. When you are aware, you can start observing how often you think about them, how much you wait for their attention, and how deeply their actions affect your mood. This self-awareness helps you understand that your emotional state is being controlled externally rather than internally. Another important part is honesty. Many people avoid accepting dependence because it feels uncomfortable or painful. However, without acceptance, change is impossible. Once you clearly admit to yourself, I am emotionally dependent on this person, you take the first step toward healing. Recognition also helps you separate love from attachment. Love is healthy, balanced, and supportive, while emotional addiction feels anxious, restless, and unstable. Understanding this difference is very important for your growth. The recognizing emotional dependence is about becoming fully aware of your emotional patterns without denial. Once you see the situation clearly, you gain the power to change it and slowly regain control over your own mind, emotions, and peace. Rebuilding your personal life is a powerful step in breaking emotional addiction to a person in a relationship. When your entire emotional energy is focused on one individual, your world becomes small, dependent, and emotionally unstable. To heal from this, you need to shift your focus back to yourself and rebuild a life that feels full, meaningful, and balanced on its own. This process starts by reconnecting with your goals and interests. Think about the things you used to enjoy or the dreams you may have ignored. It could be education, career growth, fitness, learning a new skill, or even creative hobbies. When you start investing time in yourself again, your mind slowly shifts away from constant emotional dependency. Another important part is strengthening your social life. Spend time with friends, family, or people who bring positive energy into your life. Healthy social interaction reduces loneliness and helps you realize that emotional fulfillment does not come from one person alone. It comes from multiple meaningful connections. Daily routine also plays a big role. A structured and busy routine keeps your mind engaged and reduces overthinking. When your day has purpose and activity, there is less space for emotional obsession or waiting for someone's attention. Rebuilding your personal life is not about ignoring your feelings. It is about balancing them. You are not trying to erase the person from your life immediately. You are simply making sure they are not the center of it anymore. This shift is what creates emotional independence. Over time, as you grow personally, your confidence naturally increases. You begin to feel more complete on your own, which reduces emotional craving. You stop seeing one person as your only source of happiness and start realizing your own value again. Rebuilding your personal life helps you regain identity, purpose, and emotional strength. It slowly transforms you from someone who is dependent into someone who is whole, stable, and in control of their own happiness. Limiting constant contact is a crucial step in breaking emotional addiction to a person in a relationship. When you are always texting, checking their online status, or waiting for their replies, your mind becomes trained to depend on their presence for emotional stability. This creates a cycle of overthinking, anxiety, and attachment that becomes difficult to control. Constant contact keeps the emotional bond active all the time, leaving no space for your mind to relax or detach. The more frequently you interact without balance, the stronger the dependency becomes. Even small delays in response can start affecting your mood, which is a clear sign that emotional control is shifting away from you. By intentionally reducing unnecessary communication, you begin to break this cycle. It does not mean you stop talking completely or become cold. It simply means you create healthy boundaries. Instead of being available every moment, you allow gaps between conversations so your mind can gradually adjust to emotional independence. This space is important because it helps you regain control over your thoughts. When you are not constantly engaged with their messages or updates, you start focusing more on your own life, goals, and emotions. Over time, the urge to check their phone or seek validation slowly decreases. Limiting contact also helps you observe reality more clearly. When you are not emotionally over-involved, you can better understand whether the connection is balanced or one-sided. It gives you clarity instead of confusion. Most importantly, reducing constant contact helps reset your emotional patterns. Your brain learns that you can function, feel stable, and stay calm without constant interaction. This is the beginning of emotional freedom. Limiting constant contact is not about distance for the sake of playing games. It is about creating space for healing, clarity, and emotional independence. It allows you to slowly detach in a healthy way while regaining control over your own thoughts and feelings. Strengthening self-worth is one of the most important steps in overcoming emotional addiction in a relationship. Emotional dependence often grows when a person starts believing that their happiness, value, or emotional stability comes from someone else. When self-worth is low, you begin to seek constant validation, attention, and reassurance from the other person, which creates an unhealthy emotional attachment. Self-worth means understanding that you are valuable on your own, regardless of how someone treats you or responds to you. It is the inner belief that you deserve respect, love, and emotional peace without having to constantly earn it from someone else. When this belief becomes strong, your emotional dependency naturally starts to reduce. Strengthening self-worth starts with self-awareness. You begin to notice how much your mood depends on another person's behavior. If their attention makes you feel happy and their distance makes you feel worthless, it shows that your self-worth is externally controlled. Recognizing this pattern is the first step toward change. Next comes self-respect. You start setting emotional boundaries and stop accepting behavior that makes you feel insecure or anxious. Instead of chasing validation, you begin to prioritize your own emotional well-being. This shift slowly rebuilds your inner confidence. Another important part is self-affirmation. Reminding yourself daily that you are enough helps reprogram your mind. Over time, you stop attaching your value to someone else's opinion or presence. As your self-worth grows, your emotional reactions become more stable. You no longer feel desperate for replies or overly affected by distance. Instead, you remain calm and grounded because your happiness is no longer fully dependent on one person. Strengthening self-worth transforms your emotional foundation. It shifts you from a place of dependence and insecurity to a place of confidence and inner stability. When you truly value yourself, emotional addiction naturally loses its power, and you regain control over your feelings and peace of mind. Training your mind to detach slowly is a gradual and conscious process of reducing emotional dependency without forcing yourself into sudden emotional shutdown. Emotional addiction cannot be broken overnight because it is built through habits, thoughts, and repeated emotional patterns. That's why slow and steady mental training is more effective and healthier. The first step is understanding that detachment does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop letting one person control your emotional state. Instead of reacting immediately to every message, memory, or feeling, you start observing your emotions with awareness. This creates a small gap between feeling and reaction, which is the beginning of control. Slow detachment involves redirecting your thoughts whenever you become overly focused on that person. For example, when you catch yourself overthinking or checking their activity repeatedly, you gently shift your attention to something productive, your work, hobbies, or personal goals. This repeated redirection slowly weakens emotional dependency. Another important part is reducing emotional triggers. You don't constantly revisit chats, photos, or memories that intensify attachment. By limiting these triggers, your mind gradually becomes less emotionally reactive. This helps in calming your internal attachment system over time. You also train yourself to accept discomfort. Detachment feels uncomfortable at first because your brain is used to emotional stimulation. Instead of running back to old habits, you allow yourself to sit with that discomfort. Over time, your mind adapts and becomes stronger. Most importantly, patience is key. Emotional independence is not built in days. It develops through consistent effort and self-control. Each small step of resisting attachment strengthens your mental discipline. In short, training your mind to detach slowly is about awareness, redirection, and patience. It helps you transition from emotional addiction to emotional freedom in a stable and healthy way without breaking your inner peace or forcing unnatural emotional distance.